diverse array of opinions.
Yeah, when we're having a meaningful discussion, sure. I think that, there's plenty of room to bring in somebody on big topics, like when the Ali Jake stuff came out, finding people that, knew anything about that area, bringing them on would have been helpful. We didn't really intend on doing much along the lines of guests. I don't think anybody wanted to try to recreate what Joey's already basically done the best in this industry. I think the idea was to have very light listening that you could pass the time on your drive. Talk radio, if you will.
Yeah, but do you worry about the echo chamber issue with that approach?
I worry that we won't lean into getting outside guests often enough. There's plenty of topics where I think an outside guest with an outsider's opinion would be beneficial, but oftentimes that's not an easy get because the news cycle moves so quickly. So, for instance, this will be an easy one because it happened today, but a guy just won a ladies' event in Florida. So, you know, getting Jamie on or somebody that has a
Wait,
very
that
strong
dude, that one,
opinion
the
from
one
that
dude
side.
who played the event shipped it. The guy that looked like Santa
Yeah.
Claus.
Yeah. Santa Claus shipped it right on home.
I gotta,
Um,
I gotta stop you guys. Is this what I think? Doug, are you asking Matt to do a podcast with you? Is that what's going on here?
Well, I was just saying, I mean, that idea would obviously be awesome. I don't know what the viewership would be like, but I think it would be a pretty highly viewed podcast. But the main point I'm making here is if I have a podcast, I would not want what Matt has with his podcast, where it's just a lot of people all on the same page. I would want like people that have like differing viewpoints, and then that's going to make it interesting. Because if I had a podcast with Berkey, my fans tune in to see me, and probably also they don't like Berkey, and then his fans tune in to see him, and then they definitely don't like me, and then that creates like a sort of background to the conversation that adds like it adds a lot to the conversations that we decide to have, like what they mean.
What do
I
you say,
think that
Matt?
that I think that that's true, and I think that like that type of content is good in small doses. I think it's difficult to I think it's difficult to sustain. I think it's a good approach for scale. Um, but I I think it's a very different end goal than like what we were trying to accomplish. Again, like to have differing opinions. Like first of all, nobody's forced to agree with me or anything. Like they're all free to speak their mind. But the whole point is that like in 265 podcasts, 25% of them have a strong opinionated piece. And like, yeah, that's going to be my opinion because that's my job as the host. Uh, and I think that that format works really well especially in a disjointed community. It's not leaning into the divisiveness, which is very much the template that you're suggesting. And don't get me wrong, I agree with you. The numbers will be bigger to be divisive. But I think that the longevity and building something that can become a staple uh, is you just capture more flies with honey than vinegar, in my opinion.
I just think it's better for both if you have people that are not viewing things in the same way.
All right, guys, let me jump in here, okay? So, first of all, great points, everyone. And I'm going to make a suggestion, which I've made to a couple of you guys, on the side, which is I think once a month there should be destination programming. Len, don't go anywhere. Um, and, whether it's like, the 15th of the month, whatever, 8 p.m. Eastern or whatever time it is, there should be, a little round table of like four or five guys, just like you see on any other sports show, talking about, all the stuff that's happened in the last 30 days. And, that's going to be a huge, huge, huge smash hit because people will know when it's on, and they'll be able to tune in and hear the best of the best, and that's bringing Doug in from his cast, Berkey in from his cast, Joey in from his cast, Will in from his cast. I promise I'll produce the thing, but that's just one statement I want to make. But listen, hey, what's up, David Lappin? Here's the thing, bro. I think right now, if we're gonna make some great content, Len Ashby deserves a forum right now after what's happened in the last 48 hours. So, Len, if you're willing to talk, I know you got a rant saved up here, but if you guys want to kick this up a notch, the poker producer in me says turn off my mic, and if Len wants, give Len the floor.
We can definitely turn off your mic. Len, feel free to come up here. Uh, I apologize to Len. Last night, I got way out of line. I was tilted at the poker community's reaction to the show, and I kind of targeted Len because he runs a private game, and I had no idea how much it runs. But Len is one of the oldest, just most liked, funniest sort of characters and grinders in poker. And the worst part about it was at the end of the video, I called out shady pros because there were like, just fucking ACR pros complaining about how bad it was for poker. But the way that I made the video, he even made a response video about how he isn't taking checks, and everybody knows that Len isn't taking checks from any site, but the way I made my video, I could have been seen as smearing him for it. So I would be happy if Len wants to come and rip me a new one, just to cut in like a little interlude here. But I'm also happy to start a first take type of show with you guys, like Mark said, where we just have four of us just go in, and I don't know how much, like, again, this is just obviously that's I did not expect. You never know what you're getting in these things. I did not expect Doug to be potentially propositioning Matt to do a podcast together, but I will say I do like the idea of conflict, and I think what is good on shows like First Take or like even Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless that makes people like them is those guys go at each other. They really go at each other's throats. And I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Matt, because it seems like Doug is certainly into that idea. But I do think this type of blueprint would be good for poker for sure.
I mean, the thoughts are easy. Like, those shows fucking kill, but they're awful. Like, I
It's true. I
don't know
haven't
what else to
watched them.
say, right?
Yeah, they're unbearable.
They're
They're
just
unbearable to
for
watch.
for me, they're like completely unwatchable, but they're also like the hottest thing in sports entertainment.
Yeah, so there's a market for it. So you wouldn't be into doing something like that because I know what you mean. Like there's a level of performance that they're putting on, and sort of like ridiculousness. I don't know if it would have to be like that, but yeah, I don't know. I see what you're
I
saying.
just I just don't know how there ever ends up being a respectful way that Doug and I could ever do a show like that. Like, he doesn't respect me in a lot of ways. I don't respect him in a lot of ways. And I think that that's always going to come out in the conversation. And especially since they're so contradictory to one another. Like, he doesn't respect my ability to coherently think about this game, and I don't respect his character in a lot of ways. So, like, the attacks go past one another, right? It's like, I'm not
Honestly,
qualified to talk about poker. He's not qualified to talk about anything with integrity, and now all of a sudden we're just shouting.
honestly, that dynamic almost makes the show better. I mean,
Yeah,
let's just play this out, okay? So, typically speaking, your show, everyone just tends to all agree on the same thing. It's a little bit of every now and then, but on the episodes I've watched, that's mainly what it is. This would be you and your audience getting a very different event of that, where you're actually going to be facing with someone who's going to take opposite viewpoints a lot. And then I'm bringing my audience, who is probably going to largely, you know, side with me, but maybe on like a larger scale, not like people on my show, right? Because I don't have a show like that. But think about how good that content is for the viewers. Like, imagine the topics where we agree on something. Like, it's going to be so strong. Like, if it was like, oh, something comes to our arguing, what do you think? And then we agree, we both say the same thing. That's going to be like a really, really strong argument for it. I don't know. I think that there's something there that is actually good, and I'm not saying that like it's a perfect thing, but I'll tell you what, it's a lot better. Like, let me ask, maybe that's the audience below. Would you rather watch a podcast of me and Matt talking about issues that are happening, or would you rather watch the current Solve for Why podcast?
Come on, Doug. We can't do polls in here. I do want to know what Joey thinks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just listening to the ideas. I think that I think what Doug's proposing, the idea sounds great in terms of content. It'll go well. It'll get a lot of people talking. It'll get a lot of engagement. Everybody going to be living a good life in that regard. I definitely understand where Matt's coming from because I've known Matt for a long time, and he's kind of always had different kind of way he's approached the poker world and how he's approached playing the game, how he's approaching the content space as well too. So I can understand he doesn't necessarily want to get wrapped up in some consistent show he'd have to do with somebody that he doesn't really get along with and he doesn't really want to be around when he also has his sort of vision for what he's been doing and building at Solve for Why and now building with the show. And I actually think the show is getting momentum and it's more of a longevity thing for that show to become really successful no matter who's going to be in the show consistently anyway. So I think that it just takes time for you to really break through on a bigger scale, right? If that's what you want to call it. But obviously,
It would.
Okay,
Okay.
you
Well, I
disagree? I
mean,
don't. I think it just takes time. You can't do a show 1 year. I mean, I did my show the first year. The first year, nothing really happens in the first year. It takes years for you to do content, for you to really make a name for yourself with your show. So they're on like year 1.5 or something like that. I just think it takes time, and eventually, if they do a good
oh,
job,
I think if Matt Berkey and I started a podcast, I think that podcast would absolutely smash.
yeah, I think so. I agree too. I don't disagree with that. I think any show where if you guys were talking and you guys are both going to keep playing poker and keep building your guys' platforms and keep trying to get your name at the top of what's happening in the poker world, then yeah, I definitely think it has a lot of potential and could do well if you guys just keep doing it. But I understand.
All right, let me ask you guys watching, if you think it's a good idea, thumbs up, and if you think it's a bad idea, thumbs down. Okay, down.
That's not how we do things in here, Doug. This is not a Twitter poll, okay? We talk to guests. I'm gonna bring Len on real quick. It might take 20 minutes though, but Len, what's up, man? Let me have it. Len, you at the table? You grinding?
Yeah, uh, I'm quitting soon, so I'll get on here and if you all are bored, I'll give you all a little action. But if you all got more important stuff to talk about, then go ahead. I don't care. It's not that big a deal.
Wait, are you playing in a public game?
Yes, sir. Public as it can be at the Aria Resorts and Casino.
Well, yeah. Mark wanted to get you in here.
Yeah, well, Mark was playing earlier, so we were teasing a little bit. He hit and ran us for some good money, so he left.
Yeah, I love how Mark's telling us that like we get to play with him because he's a fish and he's a fucking rounder, obviously.
Yeah, Mark's great. He's funny. Yeah, so I'll whatever. I'll tune back in about 10, 15 minutes if whatever. I'll talk a little
Yeah,
bit later. See.
go
All
for
right,
it.
see.
Go for it. Yeah, look, I think one thing that is important is it is important to have differing opinions in terms of making like it's just there is none of that right now, right? In poker, like there's no podcast or show where people go on and just like argue and debate. Like it doesn't exist. So whether it happens with Matt or Doug, like it should happen. It's an important element of entertainment, and the blueprint's been laid out for us in sports. I'd love to hear someone like Nick Wright's thoughts on this. I know he talks with Hanks and stuff. Like I would like to see that. And obviously, in ideally, you guys would be great because you're like
it's so clear that you're never going to be siding together, unless something like you said is really fucking right. like that's a decider. Like it's clear you guys aren't going to be, agreeing a lot. So yeah.
I mean,
Look,
I don't know. I feel like we might agree kind of a lot, but
what do you think, Matt?
I think the main point is that when we do agree, it has a lot more strength.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's probably true. Again, I just keep doubling back to like we just have very different goals, man. Like, yeah, that would fucking crush. And yes, there's a spot for it in the space. It obviously doesn't exist. Same thing was true when we started Only Friends. Like, there just wasn't a daily podcast, and we very much copied the Pat McAfee style of show because it's very easy to sustain. Like when you're surrounded by 4 or 5 people that you spend a lot of time with anyway, and you're just shooting the shit for 90 minutes, it's really easy to show up and press record. Uh, so yeah, I mean, I don't know, like I don't know what the end game looks like with some sort of like heated debate show in that regard. I just can't get past the fact that like it would be very hard for us to have a civil conversation, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I mean I think that's where the entertainment comes from.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, no, I get what you're saying, and I get that's not necessarily where your goals align. But I'm gonna bring in Charlie Carroll because his goals might align with this. I know he's done some debates. What's going on, Charlie? Good, man.
Isn't it like fucking 3 a.m. by the way for you guys?
4:20, bro. 4:21 actually.
So, I just kind of wanted to point out a little bit of gentle hypocrisy on the side of Doug. Brother, with all the love, you've been tweeting about me and making videos about me for years now, and every single time I offer the hash it out in a debate format, there's zero response from you, but you just carry on tweeting and just throwing around ad hominems and everything. So what's that about? How can you stand on the leg that says I want to have this kind of divisive debate show where people are pushing back against each other, where it's obviously not part of your brand to have people push back against you?
Well, I guess for starters, it has always been a big part of my brand for people to push back against me. My problem with you is that you are not a real person.
Okay. Yeah, carry on. What are some specifics apart from just like randomly throwing around childish insults? What are some specifics that you'd like to kind of throw at me?
Well, I don't want to have a podcast with someone who views it as like an important part of their social media strategy to defend pedophiles on Twitter.
So
like that's just not.
So just go really specific on that, because that's one of the worst things that you could ever throw at somebody. By the way, especially somebody that's been a victim to pedophiles. I've not once defended pedophilia on Twitter. I've not once defended pedophiles on Twitter. My attitude has been, if we want to stop children from being molested as children, sorry, I'm a little bit heated right now, but if we want children to stop being molested, we need to have more empathy to preventatively get in the way before it happens. That's my position, and I get. Wait, let me finish, because I get that if you disagree, whatever, dude. But to then levy that as an idea that, oh, now he's supporting the act of pedophilia is so fucking gross, man. I don't know if you see it. I can only imagine that you do, because it's such an ABC type of logic. And I can only imagine that there's some level of deep insecurity or fear or whatever the fuck's going on in your psyche. To imagine that's even like a reasonable thing to levy at somebody.
I just don't understand the amount of pedophile related content that you put out on the internet.
Dude, it's been like 3 tweets out of thousands of tweets. 2 were polls, and 1 was me saying, "Hey guys," in like this, in like in a tweet 5 years ago, where it was like, "Here are some unpopular opinions," and it was something along the lines of, "If you want to get rid of child molestation, have more empathy for these people." That's not me supporting them. That's not me creating content. That was one tweet that you blew up and sent into a video that was a hit piece that hundreds of thousands of people saw, that you spinned into the idea that I was supporting pedophilia. It was intentional. It was disgusting. And it's such a fucking idiotic thing to actually bring up in now in a conversation. How the fuck can you possibly defend that?
I defend that by I don't think you should be tweeting supportive content for
Dude, if you're gonna say supportive, what the fuck do you mean by that? Like, take a deep breath, and I probably need to as well. But just think for a second. What do you mean by supportive? Because I've been a victim of pedophilia. So has my wife, and you know that. And it's been a huge part of our lives, and it's destroyed our lives. I've seen my wife scream in utter terror, reliving the things that she's been through. It is the last thing on earth that I would possibly support, and you fucking know it. So what are you saying?
I think that your responses about the subject are very weird.
I don't care if you think the responses
And
are weird. What you don't do is
I
you don't
think
paint other
and
people as
the,
pedophiles. I literally get hundreds or thousands of messages every single fucking year by people going like, "Oh, Doug says you're a pedophile. Doug says you're a nonce." Apparently, it happened again on the stream a few days ago. You cannot possibly, for the life of yourself, look yourself in the mirror and think that going from, "Oh, he tweeted something about how to prevent child molestation," is possibly like a logical jump to go to he supports pedophiles. Are you that retarded?
that is obviously not what my tweets or your
Get the
tweets say
fuck out of here,
exactly.
Doug. I've had thousands of people saying, Doug says you're a nonce. Doug says you support pedophilia. You literally, in this conversation, said you support pedophilia. Why are you tweeting in support of pedophiles? Do not try and fucking pedal back on it. It's gross. It's disgusting. The
I
fact
mean,
that you
okay,
can even
all right,
support
so
that for a
we're gonna go tweet
second
by tweet then.
is
If we're gonna go tweet
absolutely
by tweet,
nonsensical.
if we're gonna go tweet by tweet here, you had a tweet from in February of this year. People are like pedophiles should be castrated or killed, and have their top porn searches as just turned 18.
Yeah.
Or watch animes or watch anime where they draw teenage girls and sexualize them.
Yeah.
Or spam pay only filters OnlyFans models who use youthful filters.
Yeah.
There is so much projection.
Exactly.
Explain
It's gross that people sexualize kids. It's gross that there's anime out there that paints people as 14 years old. It's gross that you can just turn on Netflix and there's an anime that's sexualizing a 14-year-old child, but it's okay because apparently she's 18. That is gross stuff, and I fucking hate that people project their own insecurities. And maybe, maybe that's what you were doing, dude. Maybe you're so uncomfortable because you have some pedophilic urges, because I know you like to fucking project. I know you like to project that Jane Anders is a scammer because you're actually the person that stole from it. I know you like to project on the... No, let me finish. I know you like to project that the crypto people were all scammers when you lead them down CoinFlex. Maybe you're projecting because you have pedophilic urges. Now, I don't actually think that, but listen to how fucking insane that is to have somebody say that to you.
My take is I don't think you should be tweeting about pedophiles on Twitter.
No, that's not your take. Your take is, hey, look at this person that's called Charlie Carroll. If you haven't heard of him, he supports pedophiles. 750,000 people looked at that. It was so fucking painful for me, man. It was so fucking painful for me because I've been a victim of child molestation. My granddad fucking raped me as a child, and to have thousands of people message me over years and have my girlfriend see it, have my friends see it, have all of my family see it. It's fucking painful, man. And to just say, oh, my positions, you shouldn't be tweeting, that's a fucking lie. It's fucking disgusting, man.
Well, let me put it like this. When I make my videos, I make it based on the content that I see and where I find the humor in that content. And if I see somebody who is aggressively trying to have empathy for child molesters,
Dude, even the way that you're saying it right now, aggressively trying to have empathy. I have fucking empathy for everyone, you absolute piece of shit. It's not that I'm specifically saying only child molesters.
If you're not going to be able to reel it in here, buddy, we might have to. You got to reel it in.
After you, dude. After you.
I want to say, like, my wife is a therapist, and I'm not an expert in this field at all, but anybody knows that there's a common saying, which is that abusers abuse. The people who have been abused as kids are often the ones who end up doing it. And I do think what Charlie's tweet, I think it got misconstrued at the time was just saying that we should just try to understand where it's coming from. A lot of the people that end up abusing are ones who have been abused themselves, and they have not had proper psychiatric care. I don't know if you can speak to that a little, Charlie, before this gets too out of hand, but I do feel that, like, Charlie tweeted things in a way that could sort of be seen as supporting pedophiles, but I don't think it was. And I do think, regardless of what the intent was, that things got out of hand. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Charlie, but
Yeah,
I don't want this to get out of hand. Like,
no, I feel you, brother. And I get the 5 years ago when I made that tweet that said the best way to reduce child molestation is to have empathy for child molesters. I get that now in hindsight, I was a young, dumb kid that didn't know what the internet was like. And I wouldn't make a tweet like that anymore that would be so left for interpretation. Now, if you speak to experts in these fields, what I'm saying isn't like a crazy thing. It's actually the most commonly accepted idea of how to approach these kind of situations. So like the scientific literature backs it up, the experts back it up, and my own personal experience, it's a very healing experience to be somebody who's a victim of child molestation, to have forgiveness for the people that did it. And it's actually a very powerful experience to be able to do that. Again, this isn't just child molesters. This is murderers. This is rapists. This is fucking thieves. This is somebody that pissed you off down the road. Like, if you can have empathy and forgiveness for absolutely everybody in the world's going to turn into a much better place. And that's the position that I have. And I completely get the tweet that I sent out was really stupid to say on Twitter in just a few characters. It was a punt, but Doug, you can't pretend that you didn't twist that to your own fucking clickbaitiness. You can't pretend that you didn't try and turn that into a hit piece. Like, honestly, like, speaking with the fucking God watching, do you think that you tried to manipulate the facts to spin a story?
So when I saw the tweets, my first instinct was, this guy is tweeting trying to protect child molesters, and I'm not okay with that.
Dude,
Here,
what do you mean by
Charlie, just let
let's
Doug finish. Let him just finish his
Like that.
point, and then go ahead, Charlie. Okay.
Sorry.
I know
Yeah,
I know you
you're
fired
right,
up,
you're right.
but just let Doug got to say what he got to say about it.
So your original tweet that said that, like, we need to have more empathy for child molesters, I just want you to recognize how to the rest of people that sounds like, because most people have kids or they're around kids, and these are like the kinds of people that give them nightmares. And then your tweet is about how we need to have empathy for those people. And it's just like, why are you fighting this battle? Like, these are some of the worst people. There should not be empathy for these people, in my opinion. Everyone gets their own opinion. But then on top of all of those things, you're not like taking a moment to address that, like, there was something wrong with those people. And you're also basically throwing yourself into an area where it's going to be incredibly unpopular, goes down a super dark road, and all of this for what? To, like, try and be semantically correct over what the optimal way to handle a child molester is. Like, why are you even doing this? Is my question.
With all due respect, your logic is fucking retarded. It's so bad. Like, first of all,
I'm glad you said with all due respect. Otherwise, that might have been a bit hurting, but that was fine.
Yes, okay, Brandon. Your logic is retarded with no respect whatsoever. And so let's just break down what you're saying. First of all, the tweet that I said was the best way to prevent child molestation. So for you to frame it as though, like, I'm trying, like, the point of the tweet is to support child molestation or to support child molesters, that's obviously not it. Like, as somebody who has many friends and a wife and myself who have been survivors of child molestation, it is a very important topic in my life. I've seen how much pain it causes. So what I want to do is think, okay, how can we address this in a way that is going to reduce the amount of children that get molested? Now, I know that you said something like, well, why don't you just make it clear that, or something along the lines of, like, you didn't make it clear that child molestation is a bad thing. I thought that was implicitly understood. I thought that was part of the conversation. We all just agree that child molestation is bad. But if you want me to fucking say, I think child molestation is the worst thing that you could ever do to a child, okay, now let's have a conversation. But that is just all aside. The fact is that I tweeted about here's how I think we could reduce child molestation, and you've turned it into this many-year-long thing where you're implying and sometimes just outright saying that I'm a pedophile or I'm supporting pedophiles or anything like that. Like the jump to go from A to B is horrendous. Like logically, it just makes absolutely no sense. And the fact that you're now trying to spin this as though like, oh, well, I just disagree with the thing. No, I just literally had fucking 3 years of my life of being triggered all the fucking time. And don't worry, I'm tough enough that I can handle it now. But when you first made that video about me, I was in such a dark place. You have no fucking idea how bad it was. And having somebody call me the thing that really destroyed my life and the life of my wife because some guy made a video on it, is utterly trash.
I think if I can jump in really quickly here before this continues to spiral, I understand that we're talking about a specific incident, but I think that the more underlying point here is speaking to like why I was so hesitant to agree to do some sort of one-on-one. And what it ultimately boils down to is when Doug doesn't respect you, he will never take the time to think deeply or critically about anything that it is that you're saying. Instead, he will jump to the first conclusion that fits a narrative that can be twisted into a meme and dunk on you in whatever capacity he chooses so that, it drives eyes, it betters his brand, whatever. From a business tactic, that all makes a ton of sense. But if you're gonna attempt to find some sort of sympathy from your peers, or have a reasonable community that you can work within, it's gonna be really difficult because you just become a teardown king. And I think what Charlie's ultimately speaking to here is that there was zero benefit of the doubt given when you read the tweet. The immediate snap to judgment is this guy's a Looney Tune. He's talking about protecting pedophiles, and I'm going to take to my platform and alert the masses that Charlie Carroll believes pedophilia is okay. And this is obviously an extreme example, but it's probably the most notable one because this guy is openly saying he's coming from a traumatic place. And not everybody's gone through hard shit like that. So maybe it's difficult to sympathize or empathize with him. But like he is very openly saying that he had one of the worst things that you could ever imagine happening to a child happen to him. And that's the place from which the tweet was coming. And instead of meeting that with any level of humanness, you used it as a jumping off point to villainize this guy and demonize him in the community in which he earns. To me, these are the reasons why I have zero respect for you as a man. These are the reasons why I would never in a million years consider doing this hot take back and forth. It's not about not wanting to get disagreed with. I don't care about that. I grew up arguing my entire life. I grew up in an Italian household. It's about not being able to sit across from somebody that you think is just not human, only sees the world through dollar signs, and everybody is just the next person that he can step on to benefit himself. The only reason we're talking here.
That's really not the situation in this specific instance. I have no business overlap with Charlie. What this is Charlie posted
You're in the
tweets
same community. You're in the same community. That's the business overlap.
Yeah,
It's a
we
poker
literally have
relevant
competing
story.
businesses, even though yours is obviously a lot bigger. And before Doug tries to fucking spin this, because it's obviously a slander, I just want to reply to Berkey and say,
before I get to talk, let's
say
interrupt and get some
yeah,
answers
just
in there.
Here, yeah, like let Doug speak here, just because Berkey addressed him.
I just want to say quickly, thank you, Berkey. It's the first time that I've ever heard somebody speak on my behalf on this issue in the community. So thank you.
Okay, so my stance here is actually much more simple. I had no ulterior motive in it other than the fact that I feel like it needed to be said. But child molesters are the scum of the earth, and I am not someone that's a believer in having a lot of empathy to try and understand them better. Personally, I think these are just about up there. I mean, it's pretty much the same as the murders. These are the absolute plague to our society. And I think people that tweet where it's kind of vague as to why, but to have empathy for the child molesters, I just think that take is just so wrong and off base that it needs to have a strong reaction of no, we are not going to have empathy for child molesters. That's ridiculous. And then for you to then assume that I know that, your history or whoever around you's history because I say that and respond like that. Like I don't know, de facto know what has happened to you or not happened to you. All I get is 140 characters of explaining why we need to have empathy for child molesters on my
Hey, Doug,
timeline.
let me ask you a question, Doug. So, I make a lot of content like this as well about things that have happened in the past. So, in this situation, I guess I would wonder if, I'd like to get in touch with the person first if I'm going to make a video. Like normally, if I try to make videos, I try to get in touch with the people that are the people involved just to get their side of it as well too. Because Charlie brought up a pretty good point. You basically made a video, got 700 and some thousand views. I haven't seen the video. I think it was maybe some years ago, right? Maybe I saw it back then, but I haven't seen it in a while. But I guess it is a pretty interesting question. Something I think about a lot. What responsibility as a content creator that's able to get 500,000 views for a video that you make, what responsibility do content creators like us have for doing our due diligence and really researching what we're going to say, especially knowing that this stuff is going to live on the internet forever about a person?
Do you mind if I jump in here? I just want to say it's one example out of many, and the stuff around me, it's not super important. Like I've moved past it. I'm actually fucking grateful that it happened. It really, really helped strengthen me towards other people's perceptions. So like, I'm happy to put that under the fucking bridge and accept that if Doug isn't going to want to, take it down or whatever, fuck whatever. Let's move on. But what we're looking at here is we're part of a community that has this kind of tyrannical overlord. And I'm obviously exaggerating here from the kind of archetypal standpoint that people were genuinely scared to speak out against. And I've spoken to so many big creators, big people in the sphere that have privately supported me. And I think Matt has had a really similar experience. I think Jay Nandez, who's also here, has had a similar experience. So many people have said privately to me, I'm so sorry that happened. Doug's an asshole. I can't believe he did that. But when it comes to the public sphere, there's this air of fear that I've experienced myself that like, oh, what if I'm in the next video? What if hundreds of thousands of people are going to now see a lie about me or a spin about me? And the fact is, I think it's just like one example, the thing that you did to me. It's one example out of a series of different examples. You did the exact same thing to Jay Nandez that we're now finding out you
I
were
want to go back.
lying
I want to
through
go
your
back.
teeth.
I want to go back. I found the original tweet. You deleted it, so I had to dig it up. Do you know what the original tweet was that I took a problem with? Do you know, Charlie?
Yeah, it was something along the lines of, if you want to reduce child molestation, you got to have empathy for child molesters.
No.
The best way to attack you tell me, I can't remember.
It was like the best. I had it, and then my YouTube thing just froze, and now I can't have it anymore. But God damn it.
The best way to reduce child molestation is to have empathy for child molesters, I think was word for word.
Yeah, that sounds right. The best way.
So that's exactly what I've been saying. Is like, I'm talking about how to reduce child molestation.
But that is just like, I think you're just essentially trolling to get feedback from that.
What?
Like because that tweet is so insane that it's just too much for people to handle.
This is why he accused you of projecting, though.
I'll bet you $100,000 that if we get a group of experts together, we'll find at least a bunch of them that will support what I'm saying.
That's not what you're doing on Twitter. What you're doing is you're sending that into people who are like, "Oh, it's a nice Tuesday. Oh, it's sunny outside. Oh, they're at a baseball game," and then they just see your tweet.
What?
And they're just seeing your tweet on their timeline.
I'll give you the benefit of the doubt and assume you're just pretty tired right now. I honestly don't know what you're saying.
Look, just reshift it, right? Like, if it's a woman who tweets something along the lines of anything about abuse, right? You would never assume that they didn't have experience in that realm, right? So to jump to the conclusion that obviously Charlie is just engagement farming here, it's just a massive projection on how you see Twitter. Like, you use Twitter as a sheer business platform, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is the wake of dead bodies that you leave behind in the process, because everybody in this industry is fair game to you. There is absolutely nobody who's off limits, and there is no need for any depth or critical thinking whenever it comes to deciding to dunk on somebody. Once you find something that you think is a meme, you go.
The issue I have here is that I do not think Twitter is an acceptable place to go to bat for defending child molesters.
No, stop. You're doing this lawyering bullshit.
No,
You're
I'm not
just
doing
you're just
lawyering
digging
bullshit.
it. Yes, because we're not talking about pedophilia. We're talking about every single instance that you've done this to people who have
Okay, you want to talk about if you
done.
want to talk about other instances, Matt, we can talk about other instances. But
No,
I'm
because we're
telling you,
not speak.
in this specific instance, I think it's unacceptable to post kind of cryptic-ish tweets about why we should be defending child molesters. I'm not okay with that. I'm
Okay, is there a
firmly
world where you think that
anti-child
you could be wrong?
molester.
Is there a world where you think that that stance could be wrong?
No,
Right. So that's the problem, Doug. Do you
no,
understand?
I'm
You
firmly on
you
the
are an end all
anti-child
be
molester
all.
people.
You're just an end all be all, and you use pedantic arguments in order to ensure that you're protected and that there will be some people who will rally behind that. Because if you message it such that Doug Polk believes that pedophiles are bad, there will be plenty of people who will say, fuck yeah, I support that. Pedophiles are bad. That's not even the conversation that's being had.
The
You
thing
just
is,
twist
Burley could
fucking
have had a tweet.
narratives.
He could have tweeted something that made way more sense than his original
Who
tweet.
cares, man? Who cares? We've gotten to the core of what the tweet meant. He's openly admitted that he could have worded it better. Why are you dragging a guy based off of the word choice that he used when
Because
it's
because
abundantly clear that that's
because
not what
words
the intent was?
because words have meaning.
Bro, you're not a fucking lawyer, man. That's not the way the real world operates. And this is what I've been dragged for years, is that nobody wants to dig into the nuance. Nobody wants to try to apply some sort of fucking context or understand that we speak in hyperbole sometimes, that exaggerations can be used because we're humans. We have emotions. We don't just
Sure.
operate on some robotic platform
Okay.
where we're
And
just
my
going to find
emotions
the
are
angle.
and my emotions are when I go onto Twitter and I'm scrolling through my feed and someone's on there on just a tirade about how we need to have more empathy for child molesters. I feel like that's pretty fucked up. I'm allowed to have that same emotion and that same take too.
No,
I get
dude,
to be
Sure, but you
involved.
have a
you're
responsibility to
very
a platform of 500,000 people.
yeah, you're very welcome to have that opinion. And I've offered you so many times the ability to actually have a conversation, whether privately or publicly, and be beyond the YouTube editors and the 240 characters. And every single time you've not only not said no, you've just not even replied, but just carried on posting memes about me or the way I look or my wife or fucking whatever
I
else
did,
you managed to.
what did I go after your wife? When did I go after your
You,
wife?
so you screenshotted a picture of me and my wife and said something about how it looks like we're starting a cult or something along those lines. And anyway, I don't personally care about all of the different things that you said. You even implied that the charity that I was starting was a scam. Thanks for that, by the way. It's fucking destroyed me at the time, but I'm all right now. The point is that you've been backed into a logical corner here. Matt is being extremely articulate about the issues that you're having. And all of your defense is, well, I just don't want to be on Twitter and see some guy defending this. You're ignoring like 99% of the things that we're saying. You're not taking any accountability or responsibility for the things that you've done. And you're acting like a child that's throwing his toys out the pram and just trying to fucking, like Matt said, just find some semantic argument that makes it sound like, oh, I'm the good guy now because I don't like child molesters. Well, fucking no shit. Nobody likes child molesters. That's implicitly there in the conversation. You don't need to fucking say it, you virtual signaling asshole. I fucked that last bit. Virtue signaling. Fuck.
Dangness, why don't you take over as the host here, buddy? Yo, this
All right,
this
Len.
place is getting out of
Hey,
this
Len,
place is
you
getting
want
out
to
of
come
line,
in here?
Dang. Why don't let's propose maybe a different
Sorry, guys.
topic or something, you know? I know people
It's
enjoying it out there,
4:40.
but
It's 4:40 in the morning. Yeah, I think um Len, if you want to come up here, man, feel free. Now would be a good time for Len. I think. I don't know if you're still in here, Len. Let me invite Len up.
yeah, Len's on stage right now, Dank. He's at the Aria, so he's probably playing right now.
Oh man, yeah. Whew. Len, what's going on, man? It's your time to shine, buddy. Len, you're muted, bro.
Okay, I'm on now.
Yeah, you're good to go.
All right, I just got in my car, so. Uh, yeah, that was you gonna make me follow up all that, huh? I mean, man, that's a tough spot.
No pressure, man. Just say what's on your mind.
Well, man, I mean, you got on there and gave me some tough combo for some shit that I didn't really care at first.